Are you making these common mistakes in your IELTS speaking answers? Are you making easy mistakes that could cost you your dream score? Well, today we're going to talk about 5 common mistakes I hear my students make and how to fix them. So my name is Kevin. I'm a teacher with over 10 years experience. I teach IELTS speaking, and I'm a former IELTS examiner. These are mistakes that I frequently hear students make, and I frequently teach my own students how to not make. So let's begin. Our first mistake is lack of detail. And by that, I mean your answers are just too short. For example, in a part 1, I might say, do you like reading? And the student may answer, yes, or yes, I like reading. Well, those are fine, grammatically correct answers, but they're simply not long enough. Remember, the point of an IELTS speaking exam is for me to listen to your English and to give you a grade on that. And to do that, I have to hear English from you. That means your answers have to be giving me material to grade, to evaluate. So, how do we get around that? How do we make these answers longer? I want you to think of 3 E's. We have elaborate. Elaborate means to give more detail, to explain what you mean. We have an example, and we have emotion. Think of telling a story that has emotion in it. For example, do you like reading? Yes, I like reading. I've been reading since I was 3 years old. My sister taught me, and from then on, I've been a lifelong reader. That's an example of elaboration. I'm giving more information. Let's try example. Do I like reading? Yes, I love reading. In fact, one of my favorite series is Harry Potter. I don't know if you know, but Harry Potter is about a little boy who attends a wizard school in England. And there's 7 books, and they're very, very good. They're very famous. They've made lots of movies about them and other things. Okay, so that's an example. How about emotion? Yes, I like reading. In fact, this question makes me think of a book I read called No Country for Old Men. It was very kind of dark and sad, and it really made me sad in parts because the main character was an older man, and you really felt for him. That's emotion. Of course, your examples are different. One of the reasons I like stories and emotion is because if you go back and listen to what I said, you can see how my intonation changed. That's very natural for a native speaker to do, but it's something you can do as well. Also, I think telling a personal story about emotion will relax you, will help you give a better answer. And I think you'll naturally use higher level vocabulary and naturally do that intonation that I just did. And that will improve your score. So let's go to mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is using simple words. Now, first of all, there's nothing wrong with using simple words as long as you are also using some more complex vocabulary. If you listen to native speakers, most of the time we're using relatively simple words, but we also use in more complex vocabulary when it's necessary. For example, if you look at the IELTS grading band sheet, the higher levels talk about precision, precise language. Well, what is precise language? Precise language is very exact language. For example, is my mom an office worker? That's pretty general. Or is she an electrical engineer? That's very precise, very exact. And it lets me know exactly what my mom does for a job. A simpler example, is something big or is it enormous? Enormous is more precise vocabulary. Enormous is more advanced vocabulary. And if you're using more precise language, you're going to get a better score. A frequent example that I hear with my students a lot is they translate the Vietnamese word ngon to delicious. Everything is delicious. This pho is delicious. This smoothie is delicious. This coffee is delicious. Well, as a native speaker, I never use the word delicious. I might use salty or yummy or really good or savory or something like that. It's more precise. Delicious is an advanced word, but it's overused by Vietnamese students, and usually there's something better that you can say. Another way that I like to add precision to vocabulary is by using adverbs. For example, there's something very different between being confused, I was confused, and being completely confused, I was completely confused. It's very different and it's more precise. Or we can go the opposite way. I was a little confused. Well, that's something even more different. Adverbs really help you add nuance and precision to your answer. As an added bonus, adverbs help you build more complex sentences, which will also help your grammar score. So a quick practice tip for this is when you're studying vocabulary, try to learn more precise variations of the word you're looking at. For example, say is a very general word, but we can add order. You might order food at a restaurant. A parent might order a child to do something. Yell. Oh, if I raise my voice, I'm yelling at someone. Shout. Similar to yell, but implies a little bit of anger behind it. Whisper. If I say something at a really low volume. These are all more precise words for something very simple, right? If someone said something, that's quite simple. They whispered something, they shouted something, they yelled something, they ordered something. It's very different. And little changes like that in your answer can really help boost your score. So when you study, try and learn variations. Try and learn more precise vocabulary. The third mistake is poor pronunciation. Now, when I say that, most students think, oh, I have an accent. My first language gives me an accent. Honestly, I hear that over and over and over. But I am here to tell you, who cares? You will almost always have an accent. If I try and speak Vietnamese, I have an accent. The problem comes when your accent affects my ability to understand you. Remember, IELTS is an international test, and it recognizes that people in different areas of the world speak English in a different way with different accents, and that's okay. You are probably never going to get rid of your accent, and that's okay. The important thing is that I can understand you. Also, remember that pronunciation is more than just syllable or word sound. One thing that I notice that my students have a lot of difficulty with is intonation. If you go back to, in the video, me talking about using adverbs, you'll see that when I use an adverb, I frequently change my voice. I said I was completely confused, or I was a little bit confused. Those are very different. My pronunciation and intonation changes the meaning of the word a little bit. So, practice that. A good way to practice that is to watch, I think, American comedies like Friends, The Big Bang Theory, How I Met Your Mother, anything that you think is funny. Because those characters frequently use a lot of intonation when they're speaking. Watch a minute of it, record it, mirror it, listen back. Are you matching the intonation patterns? A lot of my students sound very robotic when they answer because of the differences between the Vietnamese and the English language. It's really important to add intonation and sentence stress to your answers. It will make you sound a lot more natural. And If you want to reach the higher levels of the pronunciation score, you absolutely must do that. Mistake number 4 is overusing certain fillers. Things like, like, don't do that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with pausing a little bit to collect your thoughts. There's nothing wrong with using something to delay your answer, as long as you don't do it too much. For example, if it's something you've never heard before, say that. Wow, I've never thought of this before. But I think 2 important things. Don't let your pause be too long, and don't overuse these fillers like anything else. But a little break here or there for you to collect your thoughts is very natural. Some of these questions are difficult, and some of these questions you'll never have been asked before, so it's natural to have to stop and collect your thoughts a little bit, but again, not very long. I will tell you one filler that I hear all the time that drives me crazy, and that is, that's an interesting question. Well, I can tell you that I have never seen an IELTS question that I would consider interesting. There are a lot of things, but they are almost never interesting. So don't use that filler because it's not interesting. Say, I've never thought of this before. Wow, that's a difficult question. Or that's an unusual question. That's much better. It still gives you some time, and it's more honest than saying, this is an interesting question, because they're not. Mistake number 5 is a focus on accuracy over fluency. I don't know if it's the way most Vietnamese students learn. For example, they focus on grammar, they focus on vocabulary. They're easy to test and they're easy to self-study. But when they come into the exam room or my classroom, their speech might slow down tremendously because they're trying to be 100% correct with their pronunciation, with advanced vocabulary, and with their grammar. And what happens is that really lowers their fluency and coherence score. Remember, vocabulary is only 25% of your score. And yes, fluency and coherence is also 25% of your score. But if you are not fluent, if your speech does not have a flow to it, that's also going to affect grammar and pronunciation. So, while fluency and coherence technically is only 25% of your score, it's really, I think, the foundation that the rest of your answer is built on. If you're not giving me a fluid response, if you talk like this, it doesn't really matter what your vocabulary and pronunciation use is, because non-fluent responses are really going to hurt you across the entire exam. So, my big advice to you, it is as much more important to be fluent and coherent than it is to use advanced vocabulary. It really is. Unfortunately, I think fluency is the hardest thing to improve. You can do it. You just have to seek out speaking opportunities, whether that's online, with a friend, with a family member who speaks English. Talk to your pet. You might have to talk to yourself. But the important thing is that you're producing the English language. That is the only way to improve your fluency, is to speak and to speak a lot. All right, I've given you 5, but I like you. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to give you a 6th bonus tip that I love when my students do, and I love when someone in the exam room does, and that is to personalize your answer. Earlier, I talked about extending your answers with emotions, talking about a story, a personal story of yours. But I really want you to think about how important that is to do throughout your answer. Remember, the person giving your exam is probably sitting through at least 12 exams and maybe 24 exams in one day. And it gets really boring to hear the same answer over and over and over and over again. For example, if I ask you a part 2 question about a festival in your country and you are from Vietnam, what are you probably going to tell me about? Tet. No one ever tells me about Mid-Autumn Festival. No one ever tells me about International Teachers' Day or Women's Day. No one ever tells me about those things. Everyone always says Tet. And it's usually a variation of the same answer. I'll tell you one answer that I still remember today. And it was that question, tell me about a festival in your country. And the student said, today I'm going to talk about Tet. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be so boring. And then he said, Tet's a festival in Vietnam, and one of the things we do is make bánh chưng. And I always remember the times when me and my family make bánh chưng together, and my grandma used to tell stories about when she was a little girl. It was an amazing answer because I had never heard anything like that before. It was very personal to the student. You could tell because it was personal that he was relaxed. He was using intonation naturally. He was using some vocabulary that I might not have heard otherwise because he wasn't trying to think about it. He was just giving me a good personal story. That was over 2 years ago, and I still remember that answer because I never heard anything like it before. Personalization of your answer will 100% help you get a better score. I guarantee it because it will relax you and it will put you at ease, and it becomes more just you telling a story than you sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in an IELTS exam. I have to get a 9999. Trust me. So, to recap, elaborate on your answers. Use precise language. Focus on pronunciation, like intonation. Avoid too many fillers and personalize your answer. I guarantee you that if you work on these 5 areas, your score will improve. These 5 areas are something I hammer home again and again and again with my students. And the ones that listen and the ones that improve in these areas will always get a better score. So if you found this video helpful, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Also, if there's anything that you particularly struggle with in the IELTS speaking exam, these 5 mistakes or anything else, or you have any questions, leave a comment below and I'll definitely respond to it. So until next time, happy studying.